This episode contains strong language and adult themes. Viewer and listener discretion is advised.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever time of day it is, you are listening to and watching the 22 Dropouts. We're a YouTube show and a podcast available from wherever you get your podcasts from. Don't forget to download our back catalogue, listen to them on the journey to work in the car, or when you're doing something around the house that's just slightly less boring than listening to our podcast. We're a bunch of rugby referees from all over the world. We don't take ourselves too seriously, which is jolly good considering what rubbish we come out with normally. Joining me on my 22 tonight, say hello 22.
Hello 22.
Or at
Hello,
least 6 So we've got Sam over in Malta, we've got Sahar in Israel, Ethan in Switzerland, James, well, he doesn't know where he is, an Englishman in Scotland via Wales. Tom's left the boat behind and he's now on dry land, and Chris is desperately trying to unmute himself. Now, you might have noticed that Christopher does not have that great big mop of hair that we experienced over the last couple of weeks, which, to be fair, is what Sam's trying to do at the moment, I think. More on Sam's hairlessness and manscaping a little later on. You'll notice Christopher has had a haircut this week, and that's because it was his birthday yesterday. Now, because he's a very big boy, we decided that he should have a big boy drink. So, Christopher, show everybody your big boy birthday drink.
Yep.
It isn't even sparkling.
It's 3 litres of Lambrini.
That drink goes with his Owen Farrell haircut.
Oh.
Hang on, I don't know whether that's an insult to me or Mike who cut it. I can't tell.
I'm a master with the clippers. I'm coming over and doing yours soon, Sam. I mean, look what happens when I do mine.
Yeah, well, you never had any hair to start with, mate, so let's be fair.
That is true.
Do you use your shoulder in a tackle or just your arms only?
No, just the shoulder, mate.
Just the shoulder, okay. And then you look all innocent afterwards or pretend you're injured. Yeah, that's
of course, I never did it, mate.
I
don't know what you're talking about.
Don't listen to anything we say.
So, cheers, boys.
Yakida.
I get told that a lot.
You bum.
Lange, welcome to being out of teenagehood.
Christ.
Oh, God, yeah.
I think this might be the first time I'm not the youngest in the room.
Yeah, but you're still looking. So with that then, I think it's about time we heard a little bit more from our guests. So first of all, we're going to go to Harry Potter over in Switzerland. if you look at Ethan and he's Harry Potter, when I find the screen that's got Sam on, he looks more like Dumbledore.
Yeah.
No, he's definitely Hagrid.
As Mike's mentioned, based out in Switzerland, been here for 7 years now, or coming up on. Originally from Ayr in Scotland, so I was getting bullied by the other Scots for being one of the posh ones, not quite from the rural parts like Sam. I have been reffing now for, it'll be 4 seasons. I've been fortunate enough that I've managed to somehow stumble and burrow my way up to doing rugby Europe stuff, so I'm on test match number 3. I say test match, it's a very loose term, I'm not sure the standards all that high.
I won't hear that slur against Israeli rugby.
Yeah, we'll leave that one. I started refereeing mainly due to a mixture of injury, playing ability, and blind optimism that it might be something that I'm half decent at. So
I'm taking that as I'm no longer the only one who picked up a whistle because they were shit at playing.
Yeah.
It's a really polished and nice way of saying it, more for a self.
and this is why Ethan is now full on rugby Europe test match rugby, and Chris is still doing
Drinking Lamborghini.
So, Ethan, what's next for you then?
I think, like everybody else, coronavirus has ruined progress that I was making. So this summer was meant to be GPS sevens. So the likes of Italy, England, Ireland, France, Spain. And 15s wise, I'd started a rough pathway when I went out to Malta to do their game against Cyprus.
That's why they lost.
Yeah.
Not talking about scrum management, leave it alone.
Yeah, so 15s wise, working my way up towards championship and trophy. So was again meant to go and do Germany, Lithuania with a team of 3, which would have been the first for Swiss rugby. Yeah, the past year has been fairly mental, so kind of started off the whole process with going out and doing my first rugby Euro game with Sahar in Israel.
Tell them all what your review said about your ARs.
I believe it was nothing to comment as we weren't commed up.
I remember it differently.
I know somebody who's got some good comments for sale, don't you, Sam?
I think I know a guy, yeah.
I'll let you
Cheeky
know.
little self-plug.
Yeah. We'll just
We've got 2 sets of yours.
Yeah, I'm sure you've got old ones though. You need
because
new
it didn't
ones.
work.
Let's go and see as Sahar was one of these wonderful ARs that there's no comment on because we're so good. Sahar, tell us a bit about what you've been doing, mate.
Born in England, as you can tell from the accent. Grew up in Leicester, which is where I found rugby. I was always going to come from Bath, probably a Bath fan. I never really played to any real level, but I always loved rugby. I was living out in Italy, and I played touch rugby. And at the end of the season, kind of awards ceremony thing, I got the award for being the biggest pedant. Prize was a whistle and a yellow and red card. And I was talking to the guy who ran the club afterwards, and he said, "Why don't you have you ever thought about going and doing a refereeing course?" And I hadn't, but it seemed like a good idea, and I couldn't think of any reason not to. So I went and did a refereeing course in Italy. Got through the whole course, only to find out they couldn't qualify me because bureaucracy. Had to wait a couple of years to do one in England, and then I did one season in London and then moved back to Israel. Like Ethan was saying about coronavirus, I was supposed to have my first Rugby Europe fixtures. I was supposed to do Slovakia v Montenegro in the development 15s, and I was supposed to do under-18s trophy over the summer as well. But obviously, both of those got called off. Fingers crossed they haven't forgotten about me, and I'll get another chance next season.
Well, Chris, I think we've just found how you actually progress. Is what you're going to do is move to a country where there's only 3 referees and 4 rugby teams.
And he gave up.
Malta be perfect.
Yeah, coming to Malta too. I tell you honestly. Imagine going to Rome, right, and you get given your kit and your stash, right, and you've got to stay there and argue for it all in the back of a van, and then the guy just closes the door and goes, "I've had enough" in Italian and all the rest of it, and starts shouting. Right,
Yeah.
so
I've had enough in Italian.
there you go. There's one.
Yeah, so no, very, very precious about stash and the fit and everything. It's the only folded drawer in my room. Everything's layered nice and neatly, all folded, pressed. Whenever I travel away, it's all like wrapped and packed in. I actually put like a valuable tag in my kit bag.
Oh,
mate.
mate.
And yeah, no, take this thing out, and it is the size of a family tent. And for the first day, it rained as well, so my trim was completely ruined. So for the first day, I was genuinely unhappy. I went and sulked in the hotel room for I think about a couple of hours just by myself.
Quality, mate, quality.
In fairness, I'd probably rather
Come
that
on.
than the
You've got to have one better than that, mate. Come on. Give me a stash. Give me a stash fail.
Right, so the only thing I can think of that comes to mind
Israel's
first
rugby
game
kit.
right, I mean, I'm that. But first game I refereed in England, I just finished the refereeing course. I'd done a tournament in Israel over the summer where I'd been ARing, and I had this kit which was basically like it was a bright fluorescent yellow, and it just said rugby referee along the back, like dry fit, like standard dry fit shirt, not a refereeing kit in any way at all. And then I get to England and I show up to the pitch wearing the only vaguely refereeing shirt I have. And the DOR, and he looks at me and he just goes, "No, you can't referee in that." I'm like, "Well, this is what I've got." And he goes, "Look, I'll go upstairs to my office. I think I've got something." He goes upstairs pulls out a London Society reffing shirt from. I mean,
Oh, sorry,
we probably should have said that's not allowed. There is certain language that we have standards on this show. There are certain words that aren't allowed, and a combination of those words is London Society, because it's a particular type of crime, isn't it, Sam?
It's a heinous crime.
It's a heinous crime.
Heinous crime.
Go on, so carry on, mate.
Yeah. Anyway, so he goes up to his office and brings me back a shirt that was, I mean, maybe from the 90s if we're being generous. And it's massive.
That's modern for me and Sam.
Fuck's sake. We're not letting Sahar finish his story. Come on, mate.
The story's pretty much finishes there. He comes back down with a shirt. Like Ethan, it's massive. It's like extra large or something. And I mean, I don't think it was any more, respectable than the shirt I was wearing before. But I asked it after the game. He was like, "No, just keep it. Like, I don't need it. I don't want it." And I wore that shirt for I think probably a good few weeks before someone finally got around to getting me the sort of the up-to-date kit. And the other stash story, which Sam knows, where I know Sam from Rome, and we did the Rome Sevens together 3 years ago.
2018, yeah, I think it was, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, there were 18 referees there for one and a half pitches, let's say, and they brought kits. I think there were like 3 that were medium, and then all the rest were large, extra large.
I've been to too many tournaments where they say, "We've got your kit for you, just bring your boots," and you turn up and you get this nice shirt and things, and they go, "There you go, there's your shorts and your socks," and you fight to try and get the ones that aren't a tent. And then you go put your shorts on and realise that they've got no pockets in the referee's shorts. Come on, kit makers, make sure you give the referees pockets, please.
So
I don't like bending down to my socks to get my cards out.
The Rome 7 ones had pockets up in the shirt.
Yeah.
It was like football kit.
Proper football style.
Oh yes, inquired. Yes. The yellow card for you. Yes.
You have to do the silly dance as well.
Yeah, like
You do. Have you never seen the camp football ref? He's like prancing around the field. He gets the yellow card. He goes.
Sam's going for it. I love that, Sam.
I think Sam's watched too much of me refereeing, to be honest.
No more than that.
I know that Sam will have plenty of stories, plenty of practical jokes. Sam.
Oh shit. Okay.
Camera's on you, mate.
All right. So yeah, I mean, it's not about me, but it's about an amazing guy from Kirkcaldy, a guy called Jimmy Bonner. He's one of these guys that just absolutely loves a bit of banter and loves a bit of, a bit of crack and all that. So their family's having a barbecue and all the rest of it, and one of his sons goes, "Dad, put this on your head," right? So Jimmy Bonner's like, he's bald, pretty much like Mike, bald, right? He's actually like proper bald, like bald. Anyway, he's got this melon, this huge big watermelon, right? That they've cut in half and they've gouged all the sort of the inside of it, right? And he said, "Stick this on your head, father," right? So he sticks it on his head, planks it on top of his head, and then says, "Right, we're going to smack you, right, on it." He said, "It'll protect you, but like a fucking crash helmet. Don't worry, you'll be fine." So he's got it on his head, and his son goes, "Batter!" Knock the watermelon splits in 20 million different pieces and knocks his feather completely fucking out. There's a bit of drink involved, so he gets back up and he's like, what the hell happened? Absolute fucking cracker of a guy, just brilliant. So thinking that the watermelon's going to protect his head, but I mean, I think it just absorbs everything. The impact and just went straight through on his skull.
Right, so mine comes from the Summer 6-Way Sevens last year.
Ah, right. So the joke's not your haircut then?
No, it's not, mate. Funny enough, it's not. No. Obviously, Michael takes it upon himself to be the referee coach for the day.
I had to coach because I couldn't run.
That's true.
Yeah.
So,
no, I mean, not like my normal affliction, just my legs go in different directions than I actually want my body to go in. But I was properly crocked with a bad back, bad knee and bad foot. But
I mean, to be fair, because because Mike's always on the sideline, and he's pissed off this one team who were in like the shitter final. So they hang around after all the finals. It's the last final of the day. You know, it's been a great day of rugby. And after the final, Mike comes onto the pitch. He waddles on to have his final say. We get two of the big lads from this team to absolutely leather him. They go straight through him, bucket of ice, straight on his head. He deserved it in the middle of the pitch at Six Ways because
I've got the photos, and
prick.
it wasn't players. It was two of my referee team that did it. To be fair, mate, it was really nice because it was a bloody scorching day.
It was quite
Really
a hot day,
refreshing.
to be fair. You're welcome.
In fact, I'll show you all the photo now. I'll put the photos up from it.
Those bloody Sevens ref tops, yes, they're a good fit, but orange camo.
What's wrong with orange camo kit?
What's right with orange camo kit?
Well, I think that's a really good moment to end all of the practical joke stories for tonight. We're going to take a short break now, but we'll be back with a very special guest this evening. Find out who it is just after this.
When you need clear and concise match official communication systems, look no further than the brand new AXIWE AT350.
Radios are always useful, they always help us, especially AXIWEs, where all three of us can be open at any time and we can have open communication.
Available now from refcomsglobal.net. Investing profits into match official development worldwide.
Welcome back to part 2 of the 22 Dropouts, your favourite YouTube show and podcast. Yeah, sort of. Now, we are joined tonight by a really, really special guest. Not from the world of rugby this time, but many of you may remember a face of this chap on TV back in 1991 after being shot down, tortured and paraded on TV by Saddam's forces. So it's a great 22 welcome tonight to what a hero. He is Mr. John Nichol. How are you doing, John?
Hi guys, thanks for having me. Lovely to be with you this evening on this very professional web chat.
I can cope with that one. We'll definitely use that.
I'm just going to come that in, Mike. Can you send that check out in the post ASAP, please?
John, what have you been up to in lockdown?
Well, I've had 3 lockdown haircuts, as you can probably tell by my good lady wife. Listen, I work from home all the time anyway. So this hasn't really been all that tricky for me, if I'm brutally honest. I'm lucky we live in a nice part of the country. We've got a decent house. You know, I can just imagine how it must be for people who don't have those facilities, who don't have that kind of outside space. So listen, I've been lucky, and because I've been writing, the new book's just come out, and I've started the next book. So nothing has really changed apart from my wife and daughter are at home instead of being at work or at school. So they're eating me out of house and home, having to pay for them and everything else. So it's been all right.
You talk about where you live and how lucky you are. You have such a great community spirit in your village that you organise things like quizzes on a Friday night.
Well, to be fair, it started off as just a normal. It was there's about 5 or 6 of us families get together 4 or 5 times a year for a drink, either at the pub or at somebody's house. And because of lockdown, we said, why don't we get together for like this, kind of for a chat? And it started off, is it 10 weeks ago now? Just as a chat and a virtual drink. And then it went on to, shall we have a quick quiz for half an hour? And then it escalated up to the point now where people are being set scientific tasks. And for the next one, we've got to build a go-kart. And you've got to film yourself going down the hill by the village pub, which is just up there.
Oh, sweet.
John, we saw what happened when you tried to build a little rocket ship on Friday. And for those of you who haven't seen it, courtesy of @JohnNicholRAF on Twitter, here's his video now.
Shit! We get it, leave it, it's fine. That's knackered my patio.
Red wine, Stella, and fireworks really are not a good combination.
When you served in the RAF for 16 years in the ranks and as an officer, destroying things with fireworks and explosions was positively encouraged, in actual fact. But so it was meant to be a demonstration of the RAF Tornado, dropping a JP-233 runway cratering weapon. It went ever so slightly wrong, and it's literally cratered my patio. I have to say that anybody who's serving in the military currently would be really, really, really discouraged from that kind of thing.
I don't think they get away with doing what we did and threw a flashbang into the officers' mess.
Well, all of those things positively encouraged, but not anymore. We'd be in prison these days.
Talking of practical jokes, then, John, your career must have had a few.
I can't think of the ones that. Bearing in mind that times have changed, ones that you wouldn't get put in prison in retrospect for. What a really good mate of mine, Steve. We went through almost the whole of the officer program and our flying training, and ended up on opposite squadrons. Steve got airsick during training every time we went flying. But many people did. It was actually quite normal to be airsick in the early days. And Steve, every single time, got sick, and he always took his NATO standard issue sick bag with him, tucked into his G pants. And one Sunday, after, shall we call it, a leisurely Sunday lunch, I got into his G suit and made an adaptation to his sick bag. And I was going to tell him about it, but I completely forgot. I said next day when I got to work, I said, "Oh, Barney, you must remember to change your sick bag. Look what I did to it." And because we'd had a few ales, I completely forgot about it. And he went flying the next day. And he came back down and he said, and he was livid. and he said, I was feeling really sick. I got my sick bag out and I opened it up and I started puking. And it was like puking into a tube. So basically, he was puking into a wide funnel straight down onto his lap and onto the aircraft control systems and everything. And the aircraft was taken off the flight line for 2 days because it had to be cleaned out with carrots and sweet corn and everything.
Just quickly, I don't know if we follow that. Do you want to come on every week? Because we do want to talk about your new book and things like that. But I think we'd be amiss if we didn't just touch on the events that you went through. Chris, you got a question for him, haven't you?
I do, yeah. So unfortunately, at your last book launch, I was sunning myself in Italy, probably about 7 wines deep. So I missed a chance to ask you a question. But what was first going through your mind back then when you were first captured?
Shock, really, I suppose. Almost unbelievable. We'd been flying our jet at 600 miles an hour, 30 feet above the desert when we were hit by a missile. And although you know that these things can happen, well, you've got to take yourself back 20 hours, nearly 30 years in actual fact. So it's 30 years ago in January that we were shot down, or as I like to think of it, 30 years and 4 stone ago in actual fact. So being kind of coming out of the aircraft, landing in the desert, it's almost unbelievable. It's almost too much to cope with now. But you have been trained, and so I'm not making light of it to say that there's an almost a rising sense of panic, but then you have to press that panic down, rely on your training, which sounds trite, but you do, and kind of you've been trained for situations like this. You never expect it to happen, but you have been trained. And what people I think probably forget about now, nearly 30 years on, is nobody in the Royal Air Force in particular had ever been to war like this in any real sense for years, a little bit in the Falklands, but not quite the same, but since probably the Korean War, Second World War. And so nobody had any experience, nobody really understood what it was going to be like. And I mean, I was shot down on the first morning, so kind of the second set of operations 8 hours after they started. But those guys that did the first 3 nights, I've just been speaking to them actually because of the new book that I'm writing. And those guys that did the first 3 nights, it was tough. The sense of abject fear, the sense of something that you never experienced before, never understood what it was going to be like, was very real in actual fact.
Guys, because you've not. You weren't there, you weren't party to this unfolding on the TV. Have you learned anything about the Gulf War in the past?
Going through the Scottish schooling system, we tried to keep any form of actual British or English history to a minimum. Yeah, so there was a very, very brisk and rough knowledge on Gulf War. And I think funnily enough, I was actually flying back, went into the, whatever it was, Waterstones or W.H. Smith at the airport, and one of John's books was there. So I think that kind of
wouldn't be this one by any chance, would it?
We've all
got props tonight.
My best mate's quite a big army buff, so it was coming up to his birthday, so I was going to buy it for him. But yeah, I might.
You didn't.
Might have to. No, I don't like that.
I've ever heard in my life.
He didn't manage to get Spitfire, but it is still available. But there is a brand new one. Tell us a little bit about Lancaster.
Props.
He's plugging the show.
Hey, what can I tell you? So the Spitfire book that when I came up to speak up at your place, Mike, did very well. And on the back of that, my publisher said, would I consider writing another book? And so the Spitfire one came out exactly 2 years ago. And so Lancaster has just came out last week, just last Thursday. As an RAF officer who flew tornadoes as a navigator, one would never want to brag or boast or be a braggart or anything like that. But it's probably worth me saying it went into the Sunday Times bestseller list at number 3 this weekend. So
again.
So it's done all right in its first week, but it's the same. I mean, it's not really it's the story of the Lancaster, but it's told through the stories of the men and women who built the Lancaster, and mostly the men who flew it into battle, and their families back home. So as in Spitfire, I interviewed kind of some of the wives, some of the children, some of the partners to get that sense of what it was like to go to war, and that's what the book's about.
Yeah, I was reading a little passage of it earlier, particularly the raid over Munich, where the aircraft turned back around and came head on to somebody else, and just the way that you've written that, you can feel that panic, you can feel that tension.
Yeah, I mean, that one is a. Hello, so it's my daughter just coming in.
He's the one else got. He's the bomb. Welcome to the club, Mr. Nickel.
So normally the dog comes in as well. So that story about Ron Needle is a really incredible story. So his story goes from the very start of the book to the very end, and basically his aircraft was there was some sort of a mid-air collision with another Lancaster over the target, and he went out of control and thought they were going to have to eject, Freudian slip, and thought they weren't going to have to bail out. But they actually managed to get back, but they couldn't control the aircraft, and they crashed in France, and 5 of his crew were killed. So Ron and one of the other guys survived, but the other 5 guys were killed. And his story is quite brutal because the aircraft crashes and remains largely intact, but catches fire. And so the guy, he talks about he's trying to get out the aircraft, and he's kind of trying to get past his mates who are either burnt or completely battered up. Then his story about being saved by some local French people is astonishing. He eventually makes it back. He loses a leg, manages to get back to the UK, but he doesn't fully understand how he was affected by his experiences. Back then, people didn't talk about what we would now refer to as post-traumatic stress disorder. You just got on with your lives. And he was really badly affected, and he didn't realize it. And so I follow his journey from I follow his journey from when he was a 13-year-old butcher's boy, listening to the war starting, all the way through to the end is one of the key stories that runs through the book. But he then went on a journey of discovery to find the man in France who saved him.
Wow.
And that story, oh man, it's heartbreaking. You know, I was in tears. He was in tears. His daughter was in tears. When he was, and his story about eventually finding the place his Lancaster went down, finding the man who saved him, and the fact that, you know, they were the bits of his wreckage. The guy who saved him, when he found him, he said, "Oh, here's a present for you," and it was a baking tin, you know, a bread baking tin, and it was part of his Lancaster. They'd taken the metal and made it into. They'd used it. It was a flower pot in the village. It was a horse's water trough, and so his Lancaster, a machine of war, had been transformed into all of these things, including a bread tin, into bread tins. And the story's astonishing of this kind of the war coming from full circle from the 1930s all the way through to the current day, and what happened to Ron at the very end.
It's a remarkable story. It does actually stir quite a lot of emotions just reading these accounts, and it was the same in Spitfire. And I know that you've been sending Blue Skies messages to an awful lot of those people that you interviewed a few years ago, because what you've done is really saved their life, their memories.
I mean, if you think about it, so Ron, I think, was 19 when he was shot down in 1944. So if you were a young kid, if you were just a teenager when the war started, 12, 13, 14, and you joined the war at the end, aged 19 or 20, the youngest veterans that we have who served are now 95, 96. And they're old men. So of the men that I interviewed for Lancaster, I interviewed about 12. And I think 6 died before the book came out last week, because, you know, they're of that age. For Spitfire, I interviewed, I think, 40, because obviously I wrote that book 3 years ago and there was more around. And I think there's one of those surviving now. There's one guy from the Spitfire story that's alive today. And they're a diminishing generation, you know, and they're an amazing generation, and their stories are absolutely astonishing. I mean, they really are astonishing. And they didn't, you know, they never asked for praise, they never asked for thanks. But, you know, I think that as their numbers diminish, it's probably worth kind of recording it.
And yet, John, every single person that has survived any great war or battle, and you know, people call them heroes, and they'll openly admit straight off the bat that they're not the heroes. The heroes are the ones that didn't come back.
You're right, Samuel. I mean, what is interesting is Ron's the classic example, because, you know, we go down to the Imperial War Museum in London to look at the RAF Museum to look at the Lancaster, and while we're there, so I take him. He's in a wheelchair, he can't really walk very well. There's some school kids having a school tour, and they're looking at the Lancaster, and I tell them that. So the museum attendant is telling them, this is the Lancaster, this is where the rear gunner sat. And I say, this guy in the wheelchair was a rear gunner. And these kids, I don't know what they were, 8, 9, something like that. They couldn't believe it. Their teachers couldn't believe it. And they were talking about this hero. And he said, but I wasn't a hero. I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything that anybody else wasn't doing. And it's actually quite a valid point. To do something heroic, you need to do something extra in the face of adversity. And so your point, Sam, is that most of us who have gone to war didn't do anything extra in the face of adversity. We merely existed amidst that adversity. So it's not, there are some certain acts of heroism. There's a couple in the book, but in general terms, just being in the military doesn't really make you a hero.
That you are trained for escape and evade and for interrogation, and that comes with the territory. It came with my territory too. But my forte after that was the debriefs. How did you find the debrief, and was it done in a way that helped you, or was it done in a way that it was just a debrief, we wanted the intel and we'll deal with everything else through the trick cyclist later.
That's a good question, James. First of all, again, you have to take yourself back in time. So when you say we were trained in escape and evasion and trained in interrogation, we weren't. This was 1990, 1991. We were a Cold War Air Force. The Tornado was primarily a nuclear bomber. It was a tactical nuclear bomber, and that's what it was going to be primarily used for after the first couple of days of the war. So we were not trained in escape and evasion at all, and we were not trained in interrogation or resistance to interrogation at all. Nothing. Not a single solitary thing other than the old Cold War adage of what was called the Big Four, which was the Geneva Convention: number, rank, name, date of birth.
Yeah.
And so we weren't trained. Now, that's completely changed now because of our experiences. Completely changed the way that people do that. But to then answer your question about the debrief, we were lucky. So there was two. When we were released in March 1991 and handed back in exchange, I think there was, there's probably about 20 or 30 prisoners of war. I think there was some Americans, Kuwaiti, a couple of Italians, and 5 of our special forces. We were handed back in exchange for something like, I think 250,000 Iraqis or something like that. But we weren't allowed to go home. We were taken by the psychiatrists straight to Cyprus. We were railing against this. We were not interested. As far as we were concerned, the best debrief for us would be 10 pints of lager and a scalding hot curry. Now, we were wrong. We were absolutely wrong. And I've just emailed this afternoon about the psychiatrist that looked after us. Really experienced guy. He looked after some of the guys that involved in the search and rescue in Lockerbie when the aircraft came down over Lockerbie. Terrible, terrible situation. He then went on to look after people like John McCarthy and Terry Waite when they came out of Lebanon. Really experienced guy. And he would not let us go. He was adamant that we were going to go through a debriefing process. And he was absolutely right. And I'm really pleased that he forced us, really forced us, that we were not going to just go back to our families and have a pint of lager and say it's all over. He explained what post-traumatic stress disorder was. He explained about debriefing. He explained, and it was right. And I think almost all of us in the following 10 to 15 years thanked him at some point and said, yeah. It normally will take 5 to 10 years before any real sense of trauma will come through like that. And he was absolutely right. So that psychiatric debrief then sat alongside the military debrief. It all happened at once in the hospital in Cyprus. And so we were there for 3 days before we were then flown back home to our bases. But the interesting point was, of course, nobody wanted to be part of it at first. We knew best, even though we didn't. And I was just talking to, so it was the chap, he's now a professor, he's Wing Commander Gordon Turnbull, he's now a professor. And he was reminding me that I organised an escape of the prisoners of war. Not an escape of the prisoners of war in Baghdad, but we were in the Princess Mary Hospital in Cyprus, which is away from the main part of the base. One of the Special Forces guys was in it, 3 of them were actually quite badly shot up. But we managed to get almost all of us out of the hospital, pushing beds, hijacked a van. We went to the officers' mess at Akrotiri, which by then, because it was only, 5 days, 6 days after the war finished, and so it was rammed with people coming and going and people flying in and out of the region. And we walked into the mess, and there was just this massive cheer, and we had, we didn't pay for a beer, put it that way. I think I had 1 quiet beer, and we followed it up with 10 extremely loud beers. But the problem was, we'd escaped and hadn't kind of really thought this through, and the security team that were looking after us in the hospital thought we'd been kidnapped by somebody. So then a base-wide alert went out looking for missing RAF air crew and missing Special Forces guys. And somebody said, "Have you checked the officers' mess bar?" Okay, we found them.
I thought, John, I know you've got to leave us tonight, and it's been wonderful. We could chat to you for a very, very long time. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after this. Welcome back to part 3 of the 22 Dropouts, your most fabulous and probably your favourite by now YouTube show and podcast. That's all right, boys, wasn't it?
I could just see Sam, his cheeks were just inflated. He was like...
I love Violet. Are you okay there, Sam?
I'm fine, just waiting for your spiel.
Shall I carry on with the intro?
It's the same spiel every week, mate.
We hope you're enjoying tonight's show, and if you are enjoying tonight's show, please do go and check our back catalogue out on YouTube. Make sure that you look at the wonderful special that we did with the delightful Jill Douglas a couple of weeks ago, where she talks about the work of the Doddy Weir Foundation and what they're doing. Don't forget to go and check out Doddy's website. My name, then the figure 5 doddy.co.uk. For those of you watching, it's on your screens now. Right, so we're going to talk about the World Rugby law variations and trials to see if we can get rugby going again. So let's kick it off.
Yeah, to be fair, one of them I sort of agree with anyway for a permanent law change, and that's changing 5-metre scrums to a goal line dropout. I don't see why attacking teams should be. I don't see why attacking teams should be rewarded for getting it wrong with a 5-metre scrum.
Okay, you silence the entire panel. So no. Context.
If you sorry, go on.
Go on, James.
No. The attacking side is the one that needs to be rewarded, not the defending side. The World Rugby are trying to encourage attacking play by giving a 22 dropout from under the sticks, just like rugby league. It does not encourage attacking play. All it does, it means that the play has been taken away from a probable try or a drop goal right on the try line to back way by the halfway line with a full line of defence, and all you're going to get is bigger hits. What they should do is give the scrum to the defending side rather than the attacking side. That way, the hookers might want to actually hook the ball and get one against the head, which is the best attacking ball you can get. In the field of play, if you're held up, take it away from the try line. If you're held up in the field of play, you lose the ball, but it's still a scrum. And the side that held and the side that held you up gets the ball, and that's exactly how it should be. Not a dropout from under the sticks. I've played rugby league. Believe me, a dropout from under the sticks is a soul destroyer for both the attacking and defending side.
What you're suggesting then is we keep the scrum, but instead of the attacking ball, because up to that point we've rewarded positive play, they've gone forward, they're attacking. Now the positive players, the defenders who've managed to prevent you from grounding the ball, and therefore that is the positive play. And we are going to restart with a scrum, but it's going to go to the defending side rather than the attacking side as it currently does.
Absolutely, as it does in the middle of the field.
Yeah, I quite agree with that one.
I agree with it, but if we look at another variation, what they're trying to bring in, where they're saying about taking away options of scrums so that it quickens the game and there's less contact, because of the pandemic and stuff, where you're basically saying less scrums, free kick, everything, so you get the game going again, and it's more of a spectacle to watch, which I completely agree with, although we can't take scrums completely out of the game because that would be so destroying for any team that has that skill level that can dominate in scrums, just like lineouts or whatever. But I would say if it's held up, it's not a scrum. It should be something else given to the defending team, but not a scrum, because they're going to be under pressure at 5-metre scrum. So what are you giving them? That's going to be a kick away to touch, which then you're giving it back to the attacking team again.
You might not be under pressure in the scrum. The defending side might have the dominant scrum, and if they get the ball, they may shove them back, clear the lines.
90% of the time when you watch a game of rugby and defensive 5-metre scrum, where does that ball go? Back to the full back or the fly half, it punts it out to the...
Well, that's the point, isn't it? Whatever you do, you are going to give the ball back, because if you're under your sticks with a dropout, you're going to kick it to the opposition. If you have a 5-metre scrum to the defending side, and let's face it, they normally win, the putting inside normally wins the ball. What are they going to do? They're not going to run it most of the time from there. They're going to punt it, and it's going to be a line out to what was the original attacking side.
If they're taking away the options of scrums to make it, for the obvious reasons, then I think you should take away that point of being a scrum then and make that a free kick or something. And if they're going to give possession away, then they punt the ball up the park. At least then it's not giving possession directly back to the attacking team outside or probably in around a 22 to 10 metre line. At least it's, up at the halfway line or possibly in their 10, because you've, got a good defensive chase. Then there's a positive thing. The positive thing for me is that not giving a 5 metre defensive scrum where the defend team are already under pressure because they've only got a tiny end goal area to work with. And, the fly half's going to get smashed by a 20-stone, flanker. Do you know what I mean? That to me doesn't send the right message.
Okay, that's one. My one. What do you think, Saha?
One of the things we did a few months ago, we set up a Facebook page for the referees in Israel. And one of the things we do on the page is we sort of ask, right, this is a good opportunity to plug it, by the way. Rugby Israel referees. So the few of us who run it, and we put up stuff every so often. And one of the things we did was we asked a group of referees in Israel, if you could change one law, what would it be? And I was quite happy to see that 2 of our answers are in the law trial. So clearly someone at World Rugby is listening to us. But yeah, one of them was that one about rewarding an attacking team. A 5 metre scrum essentially being a reward for the attacking team. And the person who proposed it, Liat, she basically said, and I think she was right, that holding a player up in goal is difficult. It's an achievement, and it's something that should be
absolutely.
rewarded.
That's the positive play, isn't it?
So yeah, I see that. I can see why they introduced that law change. I think we'll reserve judgment till we see how it goes. And the other one I was quite happy with was because it was mine, and it was the choke tackle one, which I genuinely don't understand how the choke tackle is still a thing. It's slow, it's cynical. By the time it forms and then collapses, which is not safe, and then a scrum forms, and every choke tackle you're talking 2 minutes out of the game when nothing has happened. So I was delighted to see that they're thinking about possibly moving it out of the game.
Nightmare to referee.
Also that.
Taking it out of the game. Nightmare to referee.
Oh yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, how do you police it?
Well, you
It's
can't.
very hard to police.
Because if it's moving forward, it's not a choke tackle.
It's just generally with these law trials, I think, especially the ones around the scrum, there's a lot of stuff here that's possibly going to be something that they start to bring in as becoming permanent. I think there's lots of talk generally about people wanting to speed up the game, reduce the amount of time there is to scrums, especially with the sort of, you kind of the no scrum resets, no using scrums off of penalties and free kicks and things. I think these will start to become part of the game, or they will try to start to bring these in as part of the game. But obviously that's a very interesting and dangerous point in some ways, because some people, they split into 2 camps. Half people love having scrums, and then you've got backs and people who aren't normally into rugby who want to see free-flowing play and actually don't like the whole idea of the scrum. So it'll be very interesting to see where they try and actually make these a bit more permanent after the whole sort of COVID situation is hopefully dealt with as soon as possible.
I said get rid of the scrum before it was cool.
I reckon you're absolutely bang on there, Tom. That going on what we were saying before there, that the scrums are going to be reduced. I think this is a precursor to possibly something that World Rugby want to do later down the line, with actual law amendments being made law, where there's less scrums in the game, but they're not completely out of the game. It's either that, or you just have to stop the clock when they're taking all the time to get scrums. That's the only other option they've got, really. What do you reckon, Ethan, mate? What's your thoughts?
Listen, the scrum reset thing, it's a bit of a mixed bag. I think especially at the level that we operate at, is the reset acts as an opportunity for you to actually manage and interact with players, as opposed to kind of going back to the whole thing of, as you had like 20 years ago, where it was just, crouch, touch, pause, engage, bang, everybody was in, the ball came out, somehow you went with it. I think nowadays it's a lot more about the management, about that interaction, about giving players that little reminder of, okay, you've gone down, this is first scrum of the game. Remember what I said before the game. Work on this. And again, coming back to the level that especially guys like Sam and I and Sahar as well referee on a week-to-week basis.
And
There's
Chris.
a chance. Sorry?
You're such a prick.
Level that we ref at, it's if you just present it to the players as a simple, quick restart that you're going to be going again soon anyway, it's got the potential that will lead to things like lack of preparation, lack of training, which will kind of give that grand outcome of potential injury. That was the thing that stood out for me. Whereas I fully understand the concept and fully understand the why. Like with everything World Rugby do, I'm not sure that the level is taken into consideration as much, and especially who's going to be refereeing it, who's going to be playing.
I can say that. I think I agree with that, and I think there's always a sense when you look at law variations or trials that are brought in that it's designed to make the Premiership and the top 14 and the Pro 14, all of those, viewing figures and take into account things that for us just aren't relevant. And I mean, I'll give even the most simple example, like the trial to reduce the use it time to 3 seconds. I could do that, and I will if it's introduced, but ultimately the players in our league they won't be running around for 80 minutes if every ruck is 3 seconds.
Even when you say use it as a referee, they do normally use it straight away. They don't take the full 5 seconds. You say use it, like, right, okay, I've got to get rid of it. I've blown someone up for use it once. What does intrigue me, though, is this introduction of another card that we've got to carry.
You won't. It's only for those.
I won't, because I'm not good enough to carry it. But
So that's only showbiz level.
Yeah, true.
Mike, you can't really complain about what cards you can hold, mate. You can't even hold your flag properly.
Hey!
I knew I'd put it in there. I knew it.
Go on, Sam. You're doing it wrong. It's that way, Mike. It's that way.
It's down the way, mate. It can't be asked.
Down.
It's that way, isn't it? Yeah. Do it with your other hand, Sam.
But with your... Right, so that's all well and good, but now we come to the bit of the podcast that everyone actually comes to watch for. So it's time for the rumour mill, and we're going to go straight to Michael, who's conveniently just sat down in time. Go on, Mike, what's your rumour?
Like most of the guys tonight, I haven't got rumour because I've been doing other prep for the show while you were late eating your dinner. But we are going to go straight to our roving reporter. We're going straight to Tom because he's got some breaking rugby news.
I have some breaking rugby news. All 13 Premiership clubs have unanimously agreed to reduce their salary cap by £1 million. So recently the salary cap, and obviously the saga that's been going on with Saracens, currently was at £7 million. They've now decided to reduce it down for the 2021-22 season to £6 million. They've also changed that they can only have one marquee player rather than two that sits outside of that.
That's what I was going to ask on that. I tell you what, that's going to affect
Bristol.
Like Bristol, though,
are royally fucked. There's no two ways about it.
Although, listen, did you hear? Lam was on one of the other pods last week, and he says they are sitting quite comfortably. I know people say they've got all these great big stars and everything, but he says they're sitting really comfortably, well underneath that salary cap, and there is no problem.
They've got about 3 marquee players at the minute.
There is no way. Where have you got 3?
Well, they've got they've got Peter Towell, they've got Sinclair coming, and Radrada coming as well.
They don't necessarily need to be marquee players. Marquee players.
They still pay them shit tons.
That's fantastic news.
Well,
I'm so glad we're talking about this. It's fantastic. Anyway, Sahar, yes. Do you have a rumour, mate?
I don't actually know. I've not prepared anything.
That's poor.
That's shocking.
Two fingers, mate. Two fingers. Two fingers.
See, Ethan's muted, so I think I think he's trying to get out of it. 2 fingers of your
drink, mate.
Do you have a jug? Give it the 2 fingers.
Midnight here.
All the more reason.
No.
True. Ethan, rumour, spill the beans.
No, don't have one because my
Jesus Christ!
invitee, so Sam Sam, the man that invited me, didn't tell me that I had to prepare one.
Oh, Sam, two fingers.
Excuse me, I am going to backfire this right back at you, my lovely young protege of Ethan Glass. It's in the freaking notes that you're sent on PDF.
Oh,
it is.
Oh.
Can't read.
I think, Mike, you need to insert now Sam's earlier apology of not pre-warning the guests that he did at the start of the show. That's when you can insert that now.
And by the magic of television, here it is. How's it go, mate? Sam's gone quiet, dude. Sam, watch. This is why I go to Tom, because Tom actually remembers stuff. I can't even remember what I did 2 minutes ago. Never mind.
James has got one. James has definitely got one. Look,
James got two. I've got one.
He's ready.
James. Yes. Let's have your rumour.
And I have not two. About how many bunnies you've shot.
2 rumours. One, Warren Gatland gave a press conference this week and hinted very heavily that Mr. Maro Itoje is likely to be Lions captain.
Yeah, I think that's a good show. Oh, you just been for your nervous wee, Chris?
Well, I mean, I have drank nearly 2 litres of Lambrini without a nervous wee.
So you actually went for a pee during a live recording and then admittedly said you came back from a pee and drank lots of...
Wouldn't be the first time, won't be the last, mate.
He's not going to be lambasted because he went for a wee or because he left the live recording. But
because he's drinking Lambrini. And to get this back on track, my second rumour, which I got a little bit earlier, Sarri's Alex Lazowski is on his way to Montpellier.
Oh, another money grabber.
He's probably on a wage drop going to Montpellier.
When you go and play in France, I don't know when there's a qualifying period where you have to be there for so long, but they have this wonderful system that for, is it 1 year or 2 years after you finish playing, you get like your salary paid for by the club and the state or something whilst you find another job. And that's why lots of players go there to retire, because as long as they stay in France for this year or 2 years, they get paid for doing bugger all. What a great system. No wonder France is fucked. Chris, what's your rumour, man?
So I've got a rumour and I've got a sort of good news story as well. When Eddie Jones inevitably eventually leaves England,
he's going to Australia, isn't he? In a coach swap, yeah.
Steve Borthwick is backed to be his successor.
Oh. Well, you've left everybody quiet and stunned.
I mean, I don't really understand why it's a rumour, considering the contract he's just signed. It's a way down the line, and anything.
It's a long way down the line. It's a long way down the line, but I'm calling it now that Steve Borthwick is going to be the next England head coach.
Oh well, you know what they say. You heard
it here first.
You heard it here first.
I've also got a good news story as well. Super Rugby is back this weekend.
Who's getting up at stupid o'clock in the morning to watch
me.
that? Yes!
Probably will.
But New Zealand are officially COVID-19 free, and they are having full attendance at all Super Rugby games.
Yeah, baby!
And do you know what? I am so excited.
But is it full attendance by Super Rugby standards, which means mostly empty stadiums? They actually going to get people to turn up to the games.
It's a bit like the Rico, mate. It's a bit like the Rico. We say full attendance. We say we've got full attendance at Wasps games, but realistically, we haven't sold the stands.
Do they leave the shit drums at home though?
Oh, mate, those drums piss me off. I'm a Wasps fan, right? Back at Adams Park, it was a lovely little atmosphere. You know, it's a compact stadium. It's full. The place is loud. You've got Hulu bells going around the crowd, right? Now, we've moved to Coventry. We couldn't fill a stadium if we paid people to come and watch it. We have to try and make some bloody artificial atmosphere with shite drums that no one joins in with a chance to.
Well,
it's just fucking awful.
You know that they're going to play the games without the without the crowds now, and there's a possible way of getting back to COVID-19 rugby, they're going to play some sound of crowds. I think the REEC already do that anyway, don't they?
Yeah, the REEC is silent most of the time anyway, mate, let's be honest. As long as the drums are there, Wasps will win.
I think
it's all about the drums.
Chris, don't go refereeing at games. You should take your trumpet and your band and all the rest, and you become those people that play the trumpet in the back.
Do you know what, mate? I will.
It'd be more entertaining than some of the rugby I watched last season.
That good news that you said about New Zealand, mate. How much do you reckon Dan Carter's getting for coming back to the Blues?
So much money. So much money.
Oh.
But they haven't got any, though, have they? They're struggling so much with money.
Considering the contract that he had in Japan, no way he's on less money than he was in Japan.
Yeah,
There's no way.
He'll be on less money than he's in Japan. This will be boot money for him, mate. This is him just giving back to the game. I'm telling you.
No, I think you're right.
Watch his space.
There's no way he's come back to rugby for like less than what he was on.
Yeah, people do. I mean, you look at Sam Burgess when he left rugby league to come to Union, and he went to Bath, and everybody was like, "Oh, we're getting this guy. We're getting this guy. He's the best in the world." And then you look at what he was being paid. He actually took a pay cut to join rugby union. It's all about what he could achieve.
Thank you very much, House of Rugby.
Another plug for a rival podcast show.
Hey, no. Listen, we're all in the same.
Are we
boat,
even in the same league? Are we seriously saying that they're a rival?
They've never heard of us. They've never heard of us.
What Tom means is, are we really seriously saying that they're as good as us?
A member of the royal family and an ex-international rugby player?
Nah. He's a DJ now, mate. He's a DJ now.
Yeah, we are
the
only properly international rugby show and podcast. Every week we have people from all over the world as part of our 22 every week, and more than that, we're the only one that's a bit like the old pirate radio stations of yesteryear, and we have a man broadcasting from a boat. Tom!
Lovely point. Thanks for that, Mike. Love you to bits. Tom, what is it with your shit that happens that everything seems to be at an angle? You're not even on the frickin' boat and you're still at an angle.
I like his curtains.
Ethan and Sahar have no idea what's going on right now. They're like, what the fuck is the boat? Why is he recording on a boat?
To be honest, it's Sam, so it could really be anything.
Has your laptop got like a limp or something?
Yeah. I know you were saying about being so multicultural, Mike. I think it's just a shame we have some Scots on as well.
My God, I've just
see you later. Two people, and neither of them actually live in Scotland at the moment.
Ethan, don't worry about it, Ethan. I'll sort them out. Listen, mate, you get your arse out the Malta when you've got the invite part, and I'm going to frickin' have you wee shite.
He has an invite, mate. He has an invite, but coronavirus meant you couldn't. You bastards cancelled on him the weekend before he was meant to come.
£100 out of pocket.
I'll have you know that we made. I'll have you know. Bye. I'll have you know that we made the offer of him coming across, but he made the decision. Come across here and you're getting it, you shite.
The funny thing is, though, every time we send one of our team of referees over to Malta, it's normally because you're gallivanting off somewhere else in the world, and you're.
That's the only reason. That's the only reason that we go over.
Glad nobody actually noticed that my daughter came in then and said cheerio to her. So thanks.
Yeah, we did.
We've not had a proper bomb tonight.
Oh yeah,
we
I'm
have.
proud of you, mate. Well done. It's progress.
No. Well, you weren't paying attention then because she actually did. If you look back through the footage, she went in the cupboard behind me to get a glass of water.
She absolutely did.
I was probably too busy. Like actually interested in what John was saying for once.
You have to call the video bombs.
I don't care who's talking while it happens.
We are so seriously out of time tonight. It's been an absolute hoot. It's been great to welcome Ethan and Sahar on. And you guys, I know. If you just look at poor old Sahar now, it's like I need some matchsticks to hold my eyes open. It has.
Thank you very much for having us. I think.
Yeah, I mean, guys. You're welcome back anytime. It's been wonderful to chat to John Nicol tonight, and what an inspirational guy he is. but we are so out of time that we're going to have to say goodnight. So from me and from my 22 and on behalf of the guests, stay safe, stay well, check out our back catalogue, and we are your favourite YouTube show and podcast all about rugby and loads of other crap as well. We'll see you next week. Take care. Good night.
Tatty bye.